Knobcon coverage brought to you by Signal Sound and Befaco, Future Sound Systems, Low Gain Electronics, Steady State Fit, Funk and Expert Sleepers.
So hey, we're here with Jim from 512. How's it going?
Good.
Good. You're looking good for a Sunday, last day of a trade show.
Oh man, it's been a crazy weekend.
And you've been running a room, you've been running the chill out stage.
Yeah. So Saturday all day we run the chill out room at the front of the hotel.
Yeah.
And we set it up with the QSC system and quad surround. And in the afternoons, Brian Horsfeld of Aphonic does a variety of different sets in the afternoon. And then the evening we have kind of a more mix of experimental, ambient, and groovier sets towards the end.
Yeah.
And it's been a great success. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, really good. I caught a set last night in there. It sounded great.
Yeah.
Well, we're here to talk about LFOs.
Yeah.
Modulation that is wiggly. New dual LFO, looking great. Screen showing all sorts of interesting things going on. Yeah, I mean, take us through it.
So it's a quad LFO with digital waveforms, a variety of different algorithms, lots of modulation options. We really work hard to keep the UI as flat as we can. And in keeping with that, the top level page, the performance page, we got LFOs 1 and 2 on the left, 3 and 4 on the right. The primary LFOs 1 and 3 are solid, and then the secondary LFOs 2 and 4 are dotted. And for the performance page, which you can customize, we have set up, we have the waveform rate for LFO1 and the rate for LFO2. You may notice that LFO1, which is a solid one, is kind of wiggling around. I've got some modulation on that. I'll explain that a bit more later. On the right-hand side, we have a chaotic waveform called the Lorenz tractor. And for those of you who know, the Lorenz actually has 3 outputs. And I've set it up so that the LFO3's output is the X version, and then output number 4 is the Z version, and I'll show how that works as we dive in. And then to dive in, we can use the Edit A for the A side or Edit B for the B side. I'm going to go into Edit A, and I'm going to slow this one down a little bit. So we have all our primary parameters for the LFO. We have our waveform, and we have all the usual shapes: sine, triangle, saw up and down, shark up and down, square, sample and hold. And this can be a fully internally generated sample and hold, or you can have external triggers and CVs to sample. We have some morphing waveforms, stair steps, up and down, some sequenced waveforms that I can kind of get some glitchy stuff going with. And then we have our Lorenz attractor here as well. So you can run up to 4 of these if you want. Perlin noise generator is a kind of random step. And logistic modular, which is kind of a messed up square wave. Still want to work out some different shape ideas with this guy. So I'm going to take this back to the sine wave. And we can show a little bit of the shape. So that's shape 0. We have a regular sine wave about in the middle at 50. And then it kind of flattens out further on. So that's one way, of course, to modulate a wave shape, is to put the modulator on the shape.
And is that something you can route internally between the LFOs?
Yes, absolutely. I got some of that going on right now. The range on the right-hand side, so wide range gives me from about 0.17 hertz well into audio range. And then the slow range on this build goes down to 0.01 hertz. On a new build coming out this week, it'll go down to 0.001 or something. It's a 900 second cycle.
Glacial.
Yeah, it would probably get a little slower. We'll see. And then that slow still goes up fairly fast, I think to about 16 hertz. So a nice wide range to play with. We also have direct hertz control, but it only goes to about 120 hertz. So enough to give you some noisy textures to filter and play with, but it's not for tracking pitch. It's not.
Okay.
And then we have some beat-based modes, 16th notes, beats and bars. There's an internal clock. You can sync it from the gate inputs, or we have a cable here that can be used to connect it to the vector and sync it from the vector.
And then does that change, can stored states change between the modules then as well? If you're changing sequences, will that change?
I'll set it up so you can do program changes.
Okay.
The QVL has presets on board. There are 48. And what I'll do is I'll set up so that the QVL becomes essentially a MIDI source for the vector. The vector can send MIDI to the QVL.
Yep.
So you'll be able to send program changes so that when presets change on the vector for a certain part, they'll change on the QVL. But you'll also be able to send CCs from the vector, and so you could use, say, a CC to modulate the level of something, and that may save you from having to build a separate preset.
Yeah, it becomes really powerful.
Yeah. And then let's get this back to wide mode, kind of turn it down. Shape control we talked about. Phase is, of course, if you're resetting the LFO, which you can do from the gates or from other LFOs, and eventually from vector messages, it sets where the waveform's going to start.
Okay.
So I've got it, so trig B is going to reset this waveform. So if I go down to 0, it's going to stop reset on the rising edge as I push the button. And then if I go up to, say, 90, right around 90, there we go. It'll start at the top and come down. So kind of a regular reset is another way to build new wave shapes, right?
Yeah.
So those are all the primary LFO edit controls. Dive down one more, and now we have our output section. So the idea behind this is it allows you to massage the waveform, so when you patch it into something else, it's kind of in the approximate
correct range.
Yeah. And in particular, if you're patching into an input that doesn't have an attenuator.
Yeah.
Or like, say, I want to patch into cutoff, and I want to patch both an envelope and the LFO, then the attenuator is for both, so I can have a separate attenuator.
Yeah, you can do your blend on the module.
Yeah. So we have our source output, and this is how I'm able to patch the extra outputs of a Lorenz attractor. So LFO1Z will take the third output of LFO1. For the Lorenz, it's the Z output. For the other waveforms, it's an inverted version, or I want to try and do phase shifted versions for a few things. The operator can be an invert, rectify and invert, half rectify on the top end or the bottom end, shift everything up to unipolar up or unipolar below 0 volts, and the same thing inverted. And then you've got offset and level, so you can shift it up and down, and it'll clip at the ends, and then your attenuator.
It's such a comprehensive solution, but it looks like it's fast to move through.
Yeah, it's a little deeper menu system than I generally try to go for, but I've sorted it out so that the stuff you're going to use the most is right at the top.
Yeah.
And then at any time you can drop over to the B side, say LFOs 3 and 4 by hitting Edit B. You can go back and forth. This way you can bounce back one level by pressing Trig A. If you push and hold Trig A, you go back to the main pages. Couple presses gets you to LFO 2. Same edit section as for LFO 1. We got a Lorenz attractor running on this at a slow rate, and I believe this is actually being used to modulate the speed of the sequence on the vector. So it's jumping around. This kind of phrasing thing is all coming from the LFO control on the step rate. LFO 2 output. And then we get to our modulation pages. And I've got a couple modulation set up here, but I'm just going to talk about the left-hand side for now. I've got LFO 4, which I think is just a sine wave. Yeah, it's just a sine wave. Modulating the level of LFO 1, level 1. I set the amount around 78%, seems like a decent starting point. And if I back up to the main page, this explains why the solid line on the left-hand side is not just a sine wave, because it's being modulated by another sine wave, just on the level side, which is actually really handy. So as I speed up LFO 4,
do like an AM modulation.
Yeah, exactly. And then similarly, I can speed up the carrier wave. And this is just, I'm just amazed at the wide range of shapes I can get out of this, right? I can make the carrier fast, the modulator slow, both in the middle range. And of course the rates can still be modulated from the CV inputs or elsewhere.
Yeah. And again, they could be clocked. You could be modulating the level of 1/16th note LFO from a quarter note LFO.
Absolutely. Yeah. Going back to the modulation section. So we don't have just 2 of these, we have 4 of these per side. So there are 8 mod buses total. So you won't run out of room, and your sources are basically all 4 CV inputs, all of the LFOs, including the alternate outputs on LFOs 1 and 3, and 2 envelopes. We also have 2 simple envelope generators, which are good for swells and things. And then eventually you'll get CC sources from the vector as well.
Yeah, okay.
Next we have our reset selection. So LFO1 is resetting with the trig V button, so that's how that's set up.
Yeah.
This could be a gate input, or it could be another LFO. So every time an LFO crosses from below 0 to above, there's an internal trigger generated.
Okay,
And,
like an end of output.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to set it up so that that can be mapped to a CV out if you want to incorporate it with another patch.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So like one of my little goals is to be able to set this up with an oscillator like the Osiris and use it for a Corel patch.
Yeah.
Do some variations on that. On the right-hand side, we got our envelope, very simple, attack release, or attack sustain release, or attack release, I think that's hold. Length in seconds, very simple linear envelopes, again, but very useful for modulation.
Yeah.
Now we can, the last page, we can customize the top level parameters, set our synchronization source for internal, either the gate inputs as beat clocks or the vector.
Okay.
Backing up to the main page, hold edit A and B together. Now we have our preset page, we can save the preset, and we can scroll through and have different things, including loading and saving banks. Banks will be in groups of 8 presets. There's an SD card on the back, so you can export your presets to the SD card, make sure they're saved, load them into another QBL.
Yeah. It's such a powerful source.
Yeah, it's fun because it's almost like a little CV modular inside, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just the LFOs are really comprehensive. It's all the being able to modulate the level with an envelope or another LFO and all those things that would take chains of several modules to get to. Are right in there.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's like low depth menu. It's probably there's a lot in there, but it's not. It seems really fast to move between.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. We're working on shortcuts. You can hold the edit A button and turn any knob to flip through. Let me see if I can do this with my left hand. So it's an easy way to zoom through the menus quickly. And again, it's trying to organize so that once you've kind of figured out how you want to set it up, you set your primary controls here. During a performance, this is your interface. You don't have to worry about messing up the other settings. And you can have a lot of very powerful modulation options in a small amount of HP.
Yeah.
With the visual display, so you can always see what's going on.
Yeah. Available in black and white panel. Well, black and silver panels.
Black and silver panels. Available now at dealers worldwide. Stock is a little low. We got another batch coming in the next couple weeks, so they'll be filling out and available soon.
Great.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks for running through.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.
Bye.